So I wanted to talk a little bit about dissociation as a coping strategy and a survival strategy. Today I did a mindfulness exercise with a couple. The mindfulness exercise was eating a sultana. It's a commonly used mindfulness exercise where you slow down the process of eating a single sultana, noticing how it looks, noticing if it has any smell, noticing the sensations of putting it in your mouth, chewing it, waiting to see when the impulse to swallow arises, and then noticing all the sensations as you swallow the sultana. It's a very strange little exercise that I sometimes use to help people become more aware of how able they are to stay with an experience, to stay present, to notice and observe sensations, thoughts, feelings. And I did this exercise today with two people in my office, and both of them said afterwards, I couldn't stay present. One of them actually said I had to go away. It was too much. It was too uncomfortable. I was too anxious. And this is not an uncommon response to a simple mindfulness exercise. Just like when people try meditation for the first time, they often find it a little overwhelming just to sit, observe, breathe, and they often notice some resistance to the simple act of observing their breath, their body, their thoughts, their sensations. And this is common. In a slightly more extreme form of resistance, we actually check out mentally. And we all do this. Dissociation, as it's called, is a physiological response to coping with high levels of stress, anxiety, or even trauma. And it does help us cope short term. In fact, I remember the first time that I was having a baby, and there was definitely a point there where the pain was so intense that I just went somewhere else mentally. And I know a lot of women who've had babies, a lot of people who've experienced pain relate to just mentally checking out, going away, zoning out. And, it's a coping strategy and it works okay in those sort of times. It sort of worked for me at the time. The problem is when we dissociate, we are not aware, and it's a way of coping so that we're not aware of pain, discomfort, sensations, emotional distress. But when this becomes a long-term or highly conditioned or patterned way of coping with difficulties, with distress or emotional pain, we actually also miss out on a lot. We're no longer present. We're no longer connected to ourselves or to others. This can be mild or this can be quite extreme. And so for all of us, because we've all dissociated, the challenge is to notice where and when in your life do you go away? Do you dissociate? And what are the triggers for that for you? And when you do, what are you missing out on? What are the costs in your life of dissociating? Maybe there's not too many, but maybe you can identify that you dissociate anytime you get into conflict with somebody. Maybe you dissociate anytime you see a particular person in your life, or think about or remember a time in your life. First of all, I want to say that we should honor and respect our body and mind's impulse to dissociate. Anything that's trying to help us survive can't be bad. So it's not that it's bad and that mindfulness is good. It's not quite like that. It's more like, how's that working for you? And what are the costs to you in your life when you check out? And the challenge is to get more and more comfortable with discomfort, more and more comfortable with your internal sensations. because in my therapeutic experience, when we become more comfortable with our own sensations, our own bodies, our own feelings, and our own thoughts, when we can accept them even when they're difficult and uncomfortable, we end up feeling more in control of ourselves, of our feelings, and ultimately of our lives. So I'd love to hear any comments from you on this topic of dissociation, what you've experienced, and how you've learned to become more comfortable with discomfort. And I'll post an article, a great article on this soon in the coming days. That's all for now. See you next time.